Here we have an Xbox One X console that has issues displaying on a screen. Ticket number is 13075, and a big shout out to one of our viewers who sent the console in. Thank you very much for trusting me specifically, I guess, with your games console. Customer has stated that it works in safe mode in a low resolution, but as soon as you go to switch it to either 720 or 1080p, it doesn't work. It's just a black screen, and then it goes back to those options. In my experience, this is going to come down to one of two things, and the viewer has said that they watch our videos, or it might actually be Joey does tech videos, I'm not too sure, and says that the diagnosis might be a retimer IC, which I completely agree. It may be a retimer. However, it could also be maybe the ESD filter as well, so we'll need to check that. Unfortunately, there is no real way of checking other than just swapping them out, I guess. So let's head on over to the scope. Now, I'll tell you what I am going to do firstly is just check over the pins on this port, making sure that we have no issues there, because if my eyes don't deceive me, they look a little bit out of place here. Wrong port. If my eyes don't deceive me, which they just did, they do look a tiny bit out of place. Can you see how they're slightly shifted to the left? So I am just going to check. Oh, this is loose as well, look. Okay, so that port probably needs to be changed, because I don't know if that's causing any interference with the display itself. It definitely could be. Let's zoom in a little bit, shall we, and check these pins. And let's just check. Make sure they're all solid. I need a thinner pair of tweezers. Do you know what? There is slight movement with this. Slight movement. But to be honest with you, I think it's okay. I want to say. Do you know what? My recommendation would be to have this changed out, purely because of the metal class that we have here moving about. So I will contact the customer and just confirm with them and say, look, you could probably get away without having this changed, but my recommendation would be that you actually did, on top of potentially replacing this retimer IC. Now, to confirm with this retimer IC, what I am going to check is there's a capacitor here, C50, just down here. And this reading, as far as I'm aware, should be around about 5 to 6K, 5 to 6,000 ohms in resistance mode. So I am going to check that and see what we get. So we take our multimeter and we go to measure on a C50 specifically and just see what we've got. Let's get you in focus, shall we? There we go. What are we reading? About 1,340 is what we've got. So that's quite a low reading, which might explain why we're getting the output in safe mode, like 480p, but we're not getting anything in 720 or 1080. Now, that C50 cap, I'm pretty sure, links to C25, which is next to the ESD filter. So subsequently, if we measure here, we should get around about 1,300 ohms. Yeah, exactly that, 1335 here, which indicates that this is linked to that cap C50. And again, however, we don't know whether changing the retimer is going to resolve the issue, or whether we need to change this little chip here, the ESD filter. This is a BGA, a small BGA chip. But I'm going to advise the customer that it might be worth getting the port changed as well, just to avoid any further interference there. So I will confirm with the customer and do the job once they've confirmed. Saying that, I know the customer definitely wants to go ahead with the retimer change. So let's do that, and then we can wait for a reply on the actual port itself. Now, again, I will say that we do need the 158. So on the board, we have a 158. This is also a TDP 158. The 159s, which you can buy, they are cheaper. They will only work on an Xbox One S console, whereas the 158 will work on the Xbox One X we have here, and also the Xbox One S. Now, I'm also going to tin this up because recently I've had some issues with chips and oxidization. So I'm just going to cover the chip in flux and just go ahead and tin the whole IC. The solder's actually taken to these quite nicely, whereas it wasn't doing that before. Now our IC is tinned. We go over to the chip on the board, the TDP 158, and blast it to smithereens. Just going to place some flux around the IC. Should make it a little bit easier to get it off. Some retimers, like this one, can be an absolute pain to get off the board. The Xbox One X boards are very thick. As you can see, some of the solder is melted, but other parts aren't. There we go. And for that reason, we come in with a bunch more flux and just add leaded solder to the pads. So we mix that melting temperature. There we go. I don't know where pin 1 is because it's very fluxy at the moment on the actual IC itself, but as soon as I apply some heat, we should... Is it top? I think it's top right. Is that it there? Yeah. No, it's not. It's the other side. Good job we spotted it. This was deceiving. Look, this little blob up here was very deceiving. It's actually, this is pin 1. So you've now got the solder on the IC and the solder on the board. So it should theoretically take nicely as long as you put it roughly in place. There we go, look at that. So I'm just going to apply some downwards pressure now. And we should see quite a bit of squeezage. There we go. I'm going to come off the heat again. And just one last reflow with a bit of flux. Make sure that it's in place. There we go. That's better. And now whilst it's hot, again, flux all around. And just come in with our iron and tidy up. There we go. And now just give it a nice clean. Isopropyl alcohol. And a cotton swab. Get rid of all that flux. I should have seen what the reading was on the cap after we had taken the chip off. Just because that would have been interesting. Okay, let's check and see what reading we now get on C50. Dun, dun, dun. Board is still relatively hot as well, so it might be a little bit different. 4.5K, perfect. And we check this as well. Again, it's the same cap, it's linked, so we should get an exact same reading of around about 4,500 ohms, which we do. It's climbing 4,600, yeah. Like I said, board's still hot, so the reading might change a little bit. I'm just going to check the work around the IC and just make sure we're okay. Yeah, all looks good there. All looks good there. And finally, these two sides, all good. And all good. Nice. So theoretically, now this should work as long as we don't have any port issues. But like I said, I'm going to wait to hear back from the customer to see if they would like us to change out this port. All right, just had confirmation the customer is happy to go ahead with the port change. So we're just going to take the port off the board here. Usual circumstances, I would actually hang this on the heater and take it off. But I'm doing things differently today. So I'm just circulating the heat where the port is and waiting for it to almost just fall out. These boards are very, very thick, so it actually takes quite a long time to get them off the board. There we go. Whilst the board is nice and hot, we'll come in with our solder sucker and just clear out the ground holes. And then we'll just take a look at the solder on the pads. Apply some flux. I'm not going to add leaded here, I'm just going to wick away what we have. Just apply some flux there. Take our wick. The board's been susceptible to a lot of heat, so it should wick fairly easily. There we go. And a very quick clean. And we are ready to put a new port on that. So again, we come in with some more flux. Just fill up all the holes that we need to. Using leaded solder. So just quickly go over here. There we go, lovely jubbly. Now we are just going to simply drop the new port in, put that there like that, wait for that solder to wet on every single pad and ground hole. There we go. And here we go. Every single hole is wet. You just plop the port on. Give it a couple of seconds, let that solder go all the way through. And I'm pushing down now, and I'm coming off. Looking good. Going to go over the pins, just to ensure that we have a solid connection on every single one. Do that by just applying some flux. Taking our iron. I'm not putting any solder on this. I'm just going to use the solder that we have on the board and the port. I'm just going to solidify each one. There we go. One more once over. Little bridge on that side. I like to go to my bigger iron for this, usually, when I get a bridge. There we go. And now a quick clean, or a good thorough clean, should I say. We have a lot of flux in the area, but for that we need to actually add some heat back into the board. Make our lives a little bit easier. Now let's give it a little check. Just make sure we have no bridges, etc. All looks nice and soldered down there, in my opinion. All of the ground legs look solid as well. It's nice. It's a really good job. Looking very clean. Good. Just check the pins and make sure we're all solid. All good. And probably do a little clear up on aisle 7 on the back, just to smooth out these blobs that we have. Clear this flux first. We're going to probably be adding more flux onto the board in a sec, but doesn't matter. Clean as we go. Add some flux. We know that the ground legs are absolutely solid, so all I'm doing here is rounding these off to make sure they're a little bit more presentable. Might need a big bertha for this, actually. Just a bigger iron tip. So you see how we have the little mountains? Now if we come in with a big bertha and do the same. There we go. Maybe this one playing up a little bit. Okay. They will do nicely. Port's done. Retimer IC is done. And now there is nothing to do other than give it a test. I don't know how much you're actually going to be able to see, but the console is on and it's outputting in 1080p. I had to change it. It was 480 when I turned the console on originally, but I've changed it now to 1080p. And here we have a nice, crisp, full quality display. So that is going to be another happy customer. Thank you to the viewer for sending the console in. I'm glad we could get it fixed and sorted for you. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Give it a thumbs up if you did, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.